Thanks. Okay.
Do we need to repeat all that?
Yeah, I would go through it real quickly. We'll
Okay,
do that.
okay.
So-
Maybe I'll go through better. Okay, sorry that we were muted, so we're glad to hear. So thanks for texting the person in the audience. So just to go over the commission procedures, we follow the agenda item, going one by one through the agenda. And on each agenda item, staff will have a report to kind of discuss the petition, kind of discuss the current status, and if there are any specific issues with that. We'll typically, commission members will then have time to discuss the petition with staff. After that, we typically bring on the petitioner, either, via Zoom or, upfront. We do ask that anybody that comes to the podium or speaks to make sure that they state their name and address for the record. Then there'll be some questions or comments back and forth with commission members. And then if there's any public comments related to that, to those agenda items listed under new business and old business, which we don't have any old business today, but if they were listed under new business, we'll ask for public comments at that time. We don't typically ask for public comments related to other business. Those are more discussion items for the commission. So if you do have an item that you'd like to bring up associated with that, we do ask you to speak in the very beginning under public comments, which is item number 4. And we'll have that session after we go over the comprehensive plan update. If you're connected via Zoom, we ask you, if you do have comments, to raise your hand. It's like a little button that's on there. That way we know, and then at the proper time, Carlos will bring you up onto the panel. And we do ask you that you make sure that your video and microphone are turned on. By default, those are turned off. So it usually speeds things up if you're already looking for how to turn the mic on and have the video on as well. Okay, Carlos, did I miss anything?
No, sir. I think you have everything covered
All right, good.
on the comprehensive update.
Comprehensive plan update. We'll move on.
Yeah, just real quickly, just to inform everybody tentatively, we plan to have a open house on Thursday, November 30th. The time hasn't been specifically set as of yet, but that would be to introduce the draft of the plan in there. That is pendant. We had a discussion with the consultants today. We went over the revisions that they had composed based on the advisory committee discussions in there. And then tomorrow we're going to discuss about distribution of those comments to the advisory committee and what that expectation is and how long it is for them to get back, and whether we can make that deadline of November 30th in there. If that date does go as and stays, then again, we would have a public hearing before the Plan Commission probably in July and
December.
Not July. You said July.
oh, excuse me, January.
No.
January, we would extend it instead of having the public hearing in December during the holidays. Move that to January or February, and then it would go to the council for consideration in there. We've had quite an extensive public outreach component with over 9,000 visits to our website, over 900 contributors, and close to 600 people are actively engaged in the surveys, or 600 surveys that were submitted, both the initial and the secondary one, and then a lot of public engagement process out there. But that's where we're at. We'll have more information hopefully by week's end tomorrow, and then determine the schedule for that open house.
Good. Thanks, Carlos. Thanks
sir.
for that update. It's a lot to get put together. So appreciate all the hard work.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Carol, go ahead.
Carl, so when do they think that the draft will be available for the Plan Commission to review?
That would probably be after the open house sometime, not sure. So it would be sometime in December.
Okay.
I think we would want the advisory committee first to I think we'll get a better gauge on what the scope of the advisory committee component will be for that draft before it gets published.
Great. Thank you.
Thanks, Carol.
Okay, so we'll move on to public comments. And since it was muted before and I mentioned about we try to keep these to no more than 3 minutes. I'm going to repeat that again. So, but are there any, public comments? Seeing none in the audience, Carlos, will you please check, the online?
The only audience member I see right now is with one of the petitioners.
Okay, good, good. Okay, so we'll move on to new business or item 5, new business. Item A, 12, Berna Woods Lane. Carlos?
Chairman, this petition was submitted a couple of months ago and was scheduled for review in our October meeting, but we had to cancel that. Therefore, we're introducing it as a new business item and what we traditionally post as our work sessions. It's a residential addition to the property at 12 Berna Woods. It's in the Price Woods Meadows subdivision. You can see the existing house here. It's kind of in a curvature, and the property has a trapezoid type of lot, almost triangular to trapezoid to some extent. It's got an existing 1,800 square foot home built in 1958. The petitioner is seeking to add an addition. You can see the patio area here in there, and it would encompass roughly about 16 and 20 feet outward into the rear yard area, as you see here in this hash mark in there. And then it would be some modifications to the roof line to accommodate that addition. Even though the lot exceeds just 0.3 acres, the lot dimensions are short of the ideal SR district. So it's considered a legal non-conforming lot. And when we have a legal non-conforming lot, it's subject to site plan review. The reason we do site plan review is because the lot may have some type of deficiency in it. We want to be sensitive and understand how that might impact adjacent properties in this case. So we did send out notifications to properties all within 300 feet. We also sent notifications to one of the trustees of the subdivision, and I'll let the owner note any discussions that they may have had with the neighbors or the subdivisions themselves. But we didn't receive any comments after the notifications have been sent out in there. And the nonconformity is the lot depth. The lot exceeds the width by 12 feet. It's 112 feet if it's measured along the street, and it has 0.3 acres, which is well above the 15,000 square feet that's required by code. But the lot depth is a little over 100 feet, and typically you have 150 feet. So given that the rear yard setback is determined by a percentage, the shallower the lot, the less that percentage or rear yard setback will be, and therefore we need to be cognizant that the adjacent property may have a structure closer than it would if this lot was ideally 150 feet in this case. So the typical rear yard setback would be 30 feet. In this case, given the percentage applied to the reduced lot depth, it is 23 feet, the 7-foot difference in there. But you can see in this aerial how that lot kind of intersects the rear yards of other triangular or trapezoidal lots similar to that. So that impact of being too close to those other properties is kind of minimized, at least in staff's opinion, because these properties, the improvements on these properties are further either to the north or to the east. So it happens to back up to quite a bit of an open area on both properties in there. In addition to that, in no case shall a property have a rear yard setback less than 20 feet. This still maintains a setback over 20 feet in there. So that, as we look at it from the site plan component, we don't think that there would be any adverse issues to the neighboring properties. In addition to that, we're always cognizant of stormwater, and of course you put structures closer to property lines, it always becomes a bigger concern, but they are providing an on-site detention for the addition to accommodate for the stormwater the addition would create. So that would mitigate or at least addresses if there are concerns regarding stormwater on the property. So we were all set to bring this to the commission for review and approval. We reviewed it in terms of its community design guidelines for the 8 design principles for architecture and site improvements, and we found the house was compatible with the existing materials, had a lot of mass and voids in the process. Nothing wrong with the roof or the garage was pre-existing, and other aspects were already set to recommend to the commission a motion for approval. In addition to that, they were providing the on-site detention that's necessary under chapter 425, 422, our concept stormwater management in there. But as we took a closer look, and this happened today, and I apologize, we found that this is the side yard setback as calculated by code. And there, we were cognizant that the existing structure here encroached into that side yard setback. And again, that's a legal, what we consider legal non-conforming. When it was built, it was probably in compliance with the code requirements at that time. And therefore it's okay as long as they're not modifying or expanding the setback. They're not adding a second story addition to that area or so, but the addition that they're extending, while it did set back an additional 8 inches on here, that addition does encroach into that side yard setback. So I called the petitioner, who was the architect, this morning to inform him and apologize that we didn't pick that up right away. And the homeowner is here also, and he's aware of the issue. I just informed him of the issue on there. So, in there, what that does is that because there's an existing encroachment, and here you can see the yellow identifying what's existing, and again, that's okay. The red section would be is what they're proposing, and that wouldn't be compliant with the zoning code. However, the encroachment's it's almost about 3 feet in there. It would not significantly alter the design of the structure, but the commission doesn't have the authority to approve the footprint as submitted. So they have two options to consider, and we're asking for the commission to assist us in that process. One is they modify that design to reduce to 3 feet in there, but again, I don't believe it's going to change the character of the building that the commission would have reviewed, and being that we brought this to your attention in there. Or they can petition for a variance after the commission, if the commission chose to act on this. And then the Board of Adjustment, it would either grant, consider the variance. They may grant it, they may say no, but then they'd have to reduce in there. But I don't believe, at least from my opinion, that it would change what you would have viewed in that process. If it was 5, 10, 15 feet, then definitely yes, but this is 3. And the reason I'm asking, one is, I apologize, I missed that. 2, I did a delay by holding them off at the last meeting. And 3, it's a 3-foot setback. While I'm not advocating for the setback, that is not going to be my decision, but I don't think it would impact the review of the commission in terms of its design and its role in there. So I'm asking if the commission would consider acting on this again under the condition that it's going to be left up to the board of whether they would allow that 3 feet or not in there. And the commission's not forwarding a recommendation to the board in any way or getting involved. The commission's role is solely about the aesthetics and materials and the design. And I'm not sure the commission is comfortable with that, but I'd like to advocate that that's something that's well within your authority to do, so long as it's noted that you're fine with the design, but aren't advocating for that setback.
Makes sense to me.
Any questions on that?
Does anybody
I
have any?
apologize for putting you in this position too.
Go ahead, Karen.
I'd like to ask the petitioner if they have a preference of how to proceed, if they were thinking about
Sure. And we can-
redesigning or thinking about
And we can have
asking
that
for the
discussion with
variance.
them.
Yeah, let's see if
Next.
there's any
Any other questions on that?
any
before
other-
going to that?
Sure. Say-
Just on like a procedural, if we approve subject to a variance being granted, the variance isn't granted, does it then get kicked back to us, assuming a redesign is done?
That's
or-
one route. I'm thinking, it is my belief that if the 3 feet isn't granted, that reduction in change would not change you're still going to see pretty much the exact same building except 3 feet less. If it was pretty significant, like 10, 5 or 10 feet, then maybe there would be some consideration about the mass and all that. But it's one of those that if we didn't point it out, you would have never known it would have been the same house, whether it had the 3 feet or not. And I don't mean that in any offense. It's just, I'm really focusing on it now and bringing it to your attention. I don't think it would have been, that there would have been comments like, we'd like to see that more or less.
Could we approve 2 petition, not two petitions, but approved, two, motions, one for each.
And that's possible too. I mean, I think it's somewhat redundant, but it does cover both bases.
Yeah, I'm just,
And I'm
if that's a
comfortable with that.
procedure
Yeah.
thing that you would feel better with.
Well, I'm just wondering if we can save everybody the trouble of them having to come back if
Right.
it doesn't get approved, but they agree to a redesign, or Carlos, if you think it should come back here if there's a redesign and no variance, because even though we think it will be fine, it's worth taking a second look.
And that's fine. I think the area, the most significant impact in a redesign is gonna be the internal floor plan in there, because they'll have to, the 3 feet does make a big difference in terms of how the master bedroom is set up, and the bathrooms, and then the kitchen, the dining, and then the kitchen area in there, but those wouldn't change the exterior character of the 2 windows and the exit to that extent. So, but I'm comfortable with both. I'd advocate for either one of them.
I'm flexible. I defer to our lawyer.
Well, no, I mean, I'm interested to hear what the petitioner has to say, and then maybe after that, we can.
Any other questions or comments for Carlos? No? Okay, then let's hear from the petitioner.
Okay, I'm gonna promote Ryan Hopp. He's the architect for the petition, and also the applicant who's with Anthony Duncan Architecture. Ryan, you're being transferred over right now. And then we have the homeowner, Mr. Indick, is also here. And so, all right, Ryan, you're visible and we can hear you.
Hi there, folks. Well, I guess where would you like me to begin? I've got our full set of drawings. I have our files open. I can show you elevations of how the rear addition is going to look aesthetically. We can further examine the site plan, whatever is most helpful to the commission.
I think to our point, we're curious if it's already been decided one way or another, if you wanted to redesign or if you prefer to go to the Board of Appeals and just keep it as it is. I think, Carol, that's kind of what we're getting at, right?
Well, I believe in my discussion with the owner that we would like to attempt to get the variance and see what the Board of Adjustment has to say.
Okay,
I think that's good enough. for
okay,
what we're
that
asking.
helps give us
Yep.
guidance as to how we should
Yep.
formulate our motion.
Did anybody have any specific questions other than that?
No.
I think we were all okay with the addition and how everything was presented, so we don't have any issues with that. We're just trying to figure out the best way to minimize your time here at our board.
Yeah, how to best help you move forward.
Yes. Okay, well, thank you. Is there,
Mr. Index here. I don't know if there's anything you want to add to that or any comments.
good. Thank you. Okay. If there's not any further discussion, I do think we should just check to see if there's any public comments on this. Carlos, will you see if there's any public comments?
And no, sir, there are no other attendees. outside.
Any other public comments from the audience? Seeing none, I think the tricky part is gonna be who wants to craft the first stab at the motion? Sam?
I got one more part of this I want to flesh out.
Go ahead.
If we approve this subject to either approval of the variance or reduction in the size of the addition, do we have to put stipulations about what changes there are to that reduction? Like, do we have to say it has to be exactly the same except for it's whatever it is, 18 inches or 3 feet less?
Interesting point.
Because I guess my concern would be, we say it's subject to either a variance or revision so that it fits within zoning, but the change that makes it fit within zoning is of a different character, but we've already approved it without any additional stipulations on there.
That's a good point.
There's 2 ways. One, we can make that assessment. If it deviates too far from the design that the commission saw, at least for me, I'd be uncomfortable it going straight to permitting and bring it back to the commission in there. So again, if they don't, if the petition was not granted, and then they decided just to do a whole overhaul in the design, which I don't think is their intent. And that comes back, you know, to us for review. If it's significantly different, instead of rectangle, we get a more of a square addition. We'd probably want to bring it back to the commission in there. Not only does it impact, you know, what the commission saw, but it's also what's in the public record and what neighbors saw. Whether they'd recognize that 3-foot difference or not, I don't think that would have been something that somebody would have picked up unless they were noted
Right.
specifically. So I don't know if that kind of addresses what your concern is, Mr. Wallach, but that's what we probably would provide, because we'd be kind of concerned too.
Right, Carol?
So Carlos, in our motion, if we essentially say what you have outlined here, and just, we normally would assume that any nonconformities would need to go to the Board of Adjustment. So that's just routine procedure as far as we're concerned.
Correct.
So we wouldn't need to alter anything in the motion, if that's really the way. they were
Correct,
thinking.
because the conditions would be in the memorandum that kind of cover either they need a variance or reduce the footprint.
Right, so just like any time, if the Board of Adjustment kicks something back to, it needs some redesign, you would look at it just like you always do.
Mhm.
That if it's substantially in conformance with what we've approved, then we're okay.
Mhm.
This
So I
looks
don't,
pretty good. You're right.
yeah, so I don't really see any difference here.
I concur.
Works for me.
All right,
Okay.
do I hear a motion?
I'll motion.
Go ahead, Carol.
I'll move to approve the petition for site plan, community design review, and concept stormwater management plan for a residential addition at 12 Burner Woods Lane, as presented in the memorandum from the Department of Planning and Community Development, dated November 2nd, subject to resolution of the north side setback, encroachment, and staff conditions noted there.
Motion's been made by Carol Wagner. Do I hear a second?
Second.
And seconded by Brian Lewis. Carlos, you please call the vote.
Yes. Commissioner Wallace?
Approved.
Commissioner Spiegelglass?
Approved.
Commissioner Ragsdale?
Approve.
Commissioner Lewis?
Approved.
Commissioner Wagner?
Approved.
Chairman Dragell?
Approved.
The motion passes unanimously 6-0. The next step is we'll work with the petitioner and the owner in terms of getting a schedule for the zoning board of adjustment. And then we'll provide an update to the commission after that action is completed. In there.
Sounds
All
good.
right. So
Thank
we're
you.
all set. Thank you, sir.
Okay, with that being said, we'll move on to item B, which is 595 Dealman Road. This is the 3-lot final subdivision plat. Carlos?
Chairman, this was on our agenda back in August. The preliminary subdivision plat was approved by the commission. The preliminary subdivision plat is the opportunity for the commission to look at a variety of different items and scopes regarding the subdivision of property to make sure it's compatible, consistent, and buildable. In our review, we looked closely regarding to the stream buffer, which kind of extended at the northeast corner of the property right along Dealman. We also were cognizant that FEMA is looking to amend or change the current flood rate insurance maps. They call them firm maps in there, but they're not effective yet. But we were cognizant of how any future change would impact the buildability of those lots. We looked at the connection of the bike trail to the north of the property, the improvements to White Rose Lane, and access to White Rose from Birdie Lane. All those things were included in the preliminary subdivision plat in that process. So the next step in the planning process is for them to submit what they call the final subdivision plat. The final subdivision plat really just illustrates the creation of the lots and their legal description, and then they get recorded at St. Louis County. And before they can get recorded at St. Louis County, they have to be approved or acted on by the commission. Then it goes to the city council for final the authorization for the city to sign and place its seal so it can be recorded. So it's more of the legal document of the creation of these individual properties. All the improvements that were previously discussed at the August 17 minutes, those are conditions that are imposed on the preliminary plat, And then we'll follow through on any improvement plans or new house plans as they come in. So this is, part of the process. It's somewhat just an administrative procedure, but it does require the commission action in there. The final plat is very simple. It doesn't provide any topography, any trees, and anything. It's just really noting the properties that are being created, the boundaries, and then the ownerships, and then those get recorded at the county. So you have the final plat here before you, recommendation by staff for a consideration of action, and I'll be glad to answer any specific questions. Then we do have the subdivider here in attendance.
Good, good. Any questions or comments for Carlos? Seeing none. I mean, we could bring the petitioner up, but I'm not sure if there's been any changes or if there's any need. Seeing none. Any public comments related to this item? Seeing none in the audience. Carlos, is there anybody online?
No, sir.
Okay, very good. So that being said, do I hear a motion?
I'll make a motion.
Go ahead, Brian.
Motion to recommend approval of the petition for a final subdivision plat for a 3-lot subdivision of the property currently addressed as 594 Dealman Road, as presented in the memorandum from the Department of Planning and Community Development dated November 11th, 2023, subject to any staff recommendations or conditions noted herein.
Motion's been made by Brian Lewis. Do I hear a second? And seconded by Laura Ragsdale. Carlos, you please call the vote.
Yes, sir. Commissioner Wallace,
Approved.
Commissioner Stephenless, approved. Commissioner Ragsdale,
Approved.
Commissioner Lewis,
Approved.
Commissioner Wagner,
Approved.
Chairman Dragell,
Approved.
and the motion passes unanimously. This item will now be forwarded to their city council at their next meeting. I believe it's November 14th.
Very good. Okay, we'll move on to. Go ahead.
Oh, I did a mistake here. Sorry about that.
I wonder if it was currently 594. Would be last year. Yes, that's
Actually,
Sorry.
it's kind of, it's in the doc. In the separate.
So the date of approval is November 2nd. And the correct address is 594.
But it was dated, it said dated November 11th,
Mhm.
2023, it should be 2022, right?
No,
No.
for today.
Oh, dated, I apologize.
It would
Are
reflect
those
today's
Roman
date.
numerals?
I'm sorry?
Are those Roman numerals?
Yes, that's what it is.
Yes.
Do we need to
As long as
redo?
it's acknowledged.
Yeah, I think it's acknowledged by anybody disagree with any of those comments? Seeing none, I think it's officially acknowledged. Thanks for pointing that out. I appreciate that. That's good. All right, that being said, we'll move on now to item 6, other business, and item A, discussion on bamboo regulations under chapter 445, urban agriculture.
Chairman, on this item, we had it as a work session discussion at our meeting back in September with the city attorney. He assembled the commission's comments, has been working on this, and he's going to schedule a meeting with the city council at one of their work sessions. I'm not sure that's going to be in December or January to have further discussions with them. At this point right now, the consideration is to pretty much leave the ordinance as is. He may have some modifications to increase the nuisance component of that, and then whatever discussions come about from the council, if there are modifications to the code, they'll be brought back to the commission for their review. So he's gonna kind of talk to the council about what some of the general thoughts were from the commission. And also, we had the public discussion with that, and then you'll see what directive or direction the council gives them and that. So that's where we're at that process.
Okay, good. So I guess we'll move on from there. We'll move on to item B now. This is discussion of the procedures, or is there any other further discussion on that? Okay, so we'll move on to item B, discussion of procedures and regulations when there is a change in land use on an existing commercial property.
Chairman, this was an item we had a discussion after the dispensary request at Dolores and Olive Boulevard. It's something we're gonna take a look at and put together some maps to kind of discuss where we have some restricted access streets. So a lot of these cul-de-sacs that go off of Olive Boulevard, and we have a standalone building. And also, for a good example would be Oliver, and you have the bridal facility there. If they were to change in use and go from a retailer to something different, you know, what guidance should the commission be looking for, and how that impacts, you know, properties like that in there. The goal of the comprehensive plan is always looking to expand you know, the properties, because there are more things we can do with an expanded area, but when we are limited to some of these smaller lots, you know, I think, and correct me if I'm wrong, some of the goal is to create some guidance of how we're going to review, assess that, and look at how that buffer impacts that neighborhood.
Does that include like Boatman's, okay, oh my God. I'm losing it. Would that be like the Bank of America building as well?
That
was-
that is possible if there is a change in use on that side. And there's differences. We're really looking at these I would look at them as these somewhat non-conforming standalone buildings, but we'll have that discussion in there. That those are the ones that we are concerned about. Properties like the bank, those are fully compliant in there and have a little bit more flexibility. They're not as narrow or shallow or as deep. Now we can have a broader discussion or look at all the corners throughout there and see what those impacts are too.
Sure.
Go ahead.
So one of the things that really drove me crazy about that petition, there are many things, but was our corridor plan, our transportation plan was in direct conflict with the kinds of things we could consider to help that one lot. And that we didn't have a good way to balance any of that. You know, because if we were
Volume of traffic or?
the whole, the turning movements and you know, our corridor, our transportation corridor plan, which we adopted, and which we're trying to follow. But part of the problem I was having with is that any suggestions that we could come up with to help that lot conflicted with our corridor plan, transportation corridor plan. So we were damned no matter which way we turned. And you know, we couldn't help the neighborhood and redevelop the lot and do the corridor plan. It didn't work. And that's where to me, that's where the problem is. And that's because it didn't, to accomplish all three things resulted in a horrible conflict. One where we couldn't win, no matter what we did. And that, to me, that was the problem.
Well, that is an interesting point. When we try to kind of minimize the number of, you know, entrances and egresses directly from Olive and push them to those other side streets, we're impacting the traffic that's on those side streets. You know, which if somebody comes in with a drive-through or some other high volume business, that's really where it becomes more problematic. You know, am I correct?
Yeah, and I don't know if ultimately, if there's something we can do on those small lots that we just need to really think through, or if we need to modify the transportation plan to accommodate those kinds of issues. But they both weren't working.
Speak to the president. So right now, the drive-through idea, you have to have a larger area, and I know you all understand that. So that's why that never would have ever gone there, at least not while I was representing the city, but.
Right, and I wasn't worried about that, we're past that. That wasn't the issue.
But it was
But
large
the-
volume,
the-
large volume of people.
The
Yeah.
turning movements to get out.
And it's something we can discuss. It becomes, and again, this is the role of the commission that, you know, that you guys are an advisory body, not just to the council, but also to staff. I think that the transportation management plan is effective and was on target of what was necessary for this, for the corridor and the community as a whole. When you considered this lot and comments from the property owners within this lot and how it impacted them and their current use of the public street. And we tried to mitigate those concerns. To mitigate, you had to deviate from the plan. But if we would have stuck to the plan, this would have been a non-issue. From the staff perspective, that's the goal. That's why we do these plans and pay these fees and have this consultant aspect. That means there would have been a full access on Dolores. We would have closed the Olive Boulevard entrance. They would have had a cross access to the shops across Price Crossing. And that would be an effective implementation of the plan, which is a goal to help improve traffic management on Olive. But as the commission then, as its role is to consider the public comments and be sensitive and provide empathy to what comes up, and you make those decisions in there. So in that process, there was concern about a full access on Dolores and limiting access on Dolores. Therefore, it would impact, you had to mitigate that lot and allow access directly from Olive in there. And then there was concern about, so again, it's one of these, as a community as a whole, if we would have stuck to the plan, it would work perfectly, improve traffic and on how it's managed on the Olive corridor in there. When you break away or deviate from the plan, then yes, you start getting into these juxtapositions of where, trying to, do what benefits this area is going to have a broader impact. But that's also the role of the commission too, is to be sensitive to those comments.
One of the things that I think we could benefit by is some better understanding of what lots are gonna cause us to need to adjust the transportation plan, and what are our limits within that?
Yeah, I think it'd be a more
That's-
proactive approach, knowing that these.
Because I know, I'll be recognizing we can't implement it in an absolute way, but how much or what kinds of things might we need to think about?
So we'll bring in, and Don has prepared some maps, given the comprehensive plan that took a majority of our week this week. But we'll have a discussion on like corner by corner basis of what's there, and then start identifying those specific sites, and then we can start looking at possible options or solutions.
Okay, good.
Okay.
So future meetings.
Yes.
All right. Good. So that being said, we'll move on to item C, which is meeting minutes. And it looks like we have in our packet is October 5th, 2023. Would anybody like to acknowledge receipt of that?
Chairman,
Go ahead, Carol.
I'll acknowledge receipt of the October 5th, 2023 meeting minutes.
Good. If anybody has any questions or changes to that, please make sure you let Dawn know that. Okay, good. Then we'll move on to reports. I can't believe we're starting reports at 7:44. I know. Carlos.
A couple of updates. Our next meeting is scheduled for November 16th. It'll be early mid of the month. We have two petitions that we're working on right now. One is that we received a petition for Aldi's grocer to be located on lots 1 and 2 of the Olive Crossing development in there. So that will be introduced to the commission at the 16th. We'll go over staff's initial comments and discussions with the developer, then and take in commission comments and those of the public in there. And then, you know, that I always look at when something of this size and magnitude comes to the community, that first meeting will be an opportunity for the commission to take in the information in there. So I'm not expecting any actions that night. Yes, yes, sir. Continuing on the Olive Crossing development next door on lot 3. Now that grocer would be closer to the Price and Olive intersection. On the eastern end, closer to the ramps to I-170, they are starting work on lot 3. They were doing some grading, and that's a 15,000 square foot retail building with restaurants anchoring each end of the site. Only one restaurant has been acknowledged, and that is the Paris Baguette at this point. But that is going through the permitting process.
Very good.
And there, we did meet with representatives of Balboa Realty, who is doing the development at the old former Irvington and Rhine in there, and they anticipate having building permits submitted sometime by late this year, early next year, and then starting construction. They kind of discussed probably about the spring 2024 with a 2025 type of opening at that time.
With the new ownership, are there any changes?
No, not from the exterior or the number of units or anything that they're requesting from the city or the commission.
Very good.
And some of the holdup has been the changes in the market, the application process, and of course interest rates, and they're seeing what direction those are going. So, but they have full intent to continue in there. We talked about some of the improvements that are part of this development, and then improvements around the surrounding area, which they are contributors to monetarily wise to the city. So we're working hard to finally get a connection from Price to Hilltop via Alice and get a full sidewalk in place in there. My goal is that Ms. Zide no longer walks on the street. I had accomplished something.
Yeah, yeah,
So,
yeah.
and then 2, the GRG is extending, of course, the bike trail between the CVS and Chevy's along an angle through the site, and they're doing they will have a crossing on the Price Road side that goes into that development. And then 3, they're contributing funds to the intersection improvements for the north side of Price and Olive, where we're going to add a dedicated right lane to the existing 2 lanes that are on the north side by CVS, which means that the CDB building, the small building in there, that would have to be acquired by the city to do those improvements. And that is part of the funding and application we submitted and part of their contribution.
Very good. Great.
Also, I forgot. So at our next meeting, we'll introduce the Aldi. Then also I'll have the Great Heart Brewery will be in and submit the revisions regarding on how they're addressing the exhaust items in there. So that also will be coming before the commission, and then they'll be hopefully moving on in the permitting process.
Very good. Great.
Don's put together a couple of items to remember. There is the Five Oaks on Warson opening this Sunday. I believe that's from noon to 5. At the same time, the GRG Trail will have their opening in there. Weed Warriors, Don, I'm not sure what that time, the date.
I actually did not put those together this week, so that's usually the thing I do first. But
Then we have coffee with the mayor this coming Wednesday. Our guest is David Moons, who's one of the leads for the Turkey Trot, and of course this is their 10th annual event, so we're excited about that. And Turkey Trot will be on Thursday, November 24th. And again, I asked commission members to be cognizant about the November 30th date. Hopefully we'll have a presentation of the full draft in there or shortly thereafter.
Good, good.
Excuse me. I think that's all I have. Don, do you have any other updates?
Nothing to add. Thanks.
Is the Five Oaks open house as well as the Great River Greenway, is that at the same time?
Yes.
Same place? Okay. Oh, great. Fantastic. Yeah, yeah. Missy?
Thank you very much, along with, David Moons being present, even with a copy of the mayor. A representative from the Harvey Hornbloom Food Pantry will be there, whether it be the food director or the individual that runs it, or maybe both. So, that will be, part of the mayor's coffee with the mayor. Again, encourage everybody, it is a 10th year anniversary. There could be some surprises, you never know. I'm full of surprises. And it's really just gonna be a good time. Thanks to those that came to the VIP event. If you didn't know, our own Larry Gerstein, Larry G, was the caterer of the food that evening, and Olivet resident, and we all know very well. And again, Sunday, it is gonna be an open house, ribbon cutting ceremony with some dignitaries and that for GRG. Council will be there about, I think I was told to be there at 4:45 or, 4:45 or 12:15, something like that. And then, the public is open from 1 to 5. It is really cool. If you haven't been there, thank the cities, thank the citizens. This is, it's really, really very, very nice that we are, about to get a full view of what you've all said you wanted, a true community center and revamping of a park. So thank you very much. Last but not,
We
huh?
moved a long way from
Yes.
the old school.
well, I'll even go back to the very, very beginning, and I don't think any of you were here when Larry Gerstein and I, in the beginning of time, created this commission to look into that land, into the building, into the funding. What could we do? We were talking with the YMCA, we were talking with Bridge, whatever their name was at the time, Bridgeway, whatever. I mean, there's so many things, so many years, failed projects, successfully passed projects, to where we are today. And yes, we'll be dealing with the rest of the Old Saints parking lot, but just being able to get it open and started is really good. One last thing, if you've got your Five Oaks cups, do not put them in the dishwasher. I did, and now I don't have Five Oaks, but I won't tell you what it is, but the F is there. So the glasses are beautiful, it's a great memento. And last but not least, they're offering again that it's time to get Olivet shirts. You guys are commission members. Carol's wearing hers at this point in time. And, we really appreciate you and, want you to represent us well. And sometimes it means wear that thing that says Olivet on it. So with that, thank you so much for everything you do. That's it.
Thanks, Missy. Appreciate it. Dawn, do you have anything?
Nothing to add.
Nothing to add? Anybody else have anything to add? That being said, we'll adjourn at 7:53.